my channel. Hey yo, listen up, listen up, yeah. Hey yo, the wireless woman.
You in charge of the girls, right?
I am in charge of the girls.
Are you in charge of the girls?
I am in charge of the girls.
Okay.
All right, Wi-Fi's. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Welcome back to yet another underground transmission of the Wireless Woman. I am the Wireless Woman, asking you to make sure you do me that big favor on your way in and like this video. Why? Because when you like it, well, I love it. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And click the bell for notifications of when I go live and when I upload new content. All right, listen, am I in charge of the girls? Well, hey, I am in charge of the girls, which means that we have to have a girl group about Chrisean and Danaia. You know, a lot of people have been bringing in certain situations to compare, but honestly, I'm not feeling the whole situation with these two ladies in particular. I call this episode From Groomed to Grift. We as women have to begin to rally around each other, close ranks, if you will. And all of us have sat back and watched, the plight of Chrisean Rock. We know that type of dynamic. A lot of times I go back and forth, back, forth and forth with men who I don't know. I get it that men feel like they're the authority on being men. I respect that. But they have to understand that if they are heterosexual, don't date other men. The stakes, the dynamics between men and women change when you're in an interpersonal relationship. So these guys may be your guys, they may be your fellas. Y'all talk about your sports and your beer and your hobbies, but maybe you don't date these men. And so we as women know how soul shattering it can be to place your faith, your love, your hope into what you feel like is the potential with a man and then have that go left or go awry. Many of us, and I say this as a former first lady, as a former first wife and a baby mama, I've been both. I can honestly say that, a lot of times these men are 100% on board with the baby making process. And then all of a sudden, they're jumping off the back of the caboose when it comes baby raising time. So we can all identify to a certain extent, whether it is us ourselves or just with the plight we've seen with our moms as women, we're going to identify with our moms. So we have seen on some level this plight play out. So of course we can empathize in a way that men can't. Men who will never be mothers, who will never date other men and know the heartbreak and destitution and dissolution that comes along with, a relationship not working out the way we hoped and planned. I can't understand it from a man's perspective. A lot of men jump on these platforms and speak for women, telling men what women think. And a lot of women jump on these platforms telling other women how men feel and how men think. But in my opinion, there's nothing more masculine as a woman than thinking you really understand men, how they feel, how they process their emotions, where they're coming from, their motivations. I personally, and listen, I suffer for this, but I personally subscribe to men being the ones to describe their experiences, just like I don't date women. So when they tell me, women are like this, women are like that, I'm like, this isn't my experience with women, but I'm not going to invalidate their experience with women because I'm not experiencing them the same way. Women don't come to me asking for money. You know, I've never been broken because a woman chose another man. You know, I mean, we're just friends. So I I don't pretend to understand how men experience their emotions. I leave them to tell me what their experiences are. So we as women see these situations with, Danae and Chrisean. And what I find to be so interesting about both of those situations is that you got women on opposite ends of the spectrum experiencing the same thing with their men. Even if you could look at the situation and maybe understand why Blueface feels a certain way. Literally, Derek Jackson got the complete opposite woman, and there's still the same dynamic going on. This is a teachable moment for us as Black women to understand that to a man who doesn't know what he wants or doesn't want what he wants, you'll never be good enough. You'll never, like, we have to stop centering men in our being who we are, our aspirations. We have to stop centering being mothers and being wives as well, and make sure we're starting with the self cup before we pour ourselves out into other roles. And a lot of what we're receiving in the messaging from our men nowadays is that it's all about our roles. Can you cook? What type of woman are you? And all of those things should not start with trying to fulfill a certain gender performance or a gender role. It should start with what type of women we are. I've told the story on this channel before about my mom and how my mom was never a great cook. But in the end, she ended up being the best caretaker that my stepfather could have. All of that lack of submission really paid off when the doctors were telling her, like, hey, you can't do this by yourself, put him in hospice, but it was his desire that she be the one to care for him until he passed. And so that same amount of unsubmissiveness ended up being the thing that kept him alive much longer than projected and allowed her to be able to fulfill his last wishes. So there is a thing that's been gifted and grafted into Black women to excel no matter what. And right now, that no matter what even means to a certain extent defying our men. But the reason why I wanted to come in here and talk about Danae and Chrisean is that while to a certain extent, at a certain point, these women may have come off like victims, baby, they out here trying to create a trauma bond with us. When people are disenfranchised from their communities, they always want to come back to Black women in particular for support. We see it with Black men, but I submit that these Black women are no better than the Black men that they love. They're grifting off the Black female community. They're grifting off of Black female empathy the same way that we reached out our hands to give place and reverence to our men. I mean, a lot of these men that are on these internets, that are on these keyboards, click clacking away about how horrible Black women are, let's be real, live in Black women's basements. Probably staying in a house with a Black woman right now, or some woman, and still in the midst of grifting, benefiting off of Black women, have a disdain towards them. And the same male identified pathology that allows a woman to continuously let a man come in and get the best of her, take advantage of her, because you got to be male identified to continue to defend a man that you see in wrong. And so now we're letting these male identified women with male pathology come in and really just kind of pick up the pieces, of where their men left off. And it's really sad and it's really tragic, but I have to, at a certain point, separate myself from that and really speak to the women who could potentially get caught up in yet another grift. Anybody that went down the Derek Jackson train don't need to get on the Danaiajackson train, because in her interview with Lateris, which, baby, she said that was the only interview that she was released to do, and Lateris is the exact same narcissist that her husband is. He even openly confessed to it.
Danae, let me tell you something. Who you sitting across? You're sitting across a guy who cheated on my wife multiple times when I was married.
Wow.
And the only difference between me and your current husband is that I never created a platform to try to tell people what not to do, and the men.
Made sure to not just let her know, but us know that he did the exact same thing to his wife. That he cheated, he did all of that, and after they went through all the work to restore their marriage as much as possible, he divorced her because he felt like he needed a new start. A new start that, by the way, BTW, he hasn't gotten yet. I mean, how many years of healing and being single do you need to be if your true intention is to be with a wife? Because a couple of weeks, maybe a month before he had her on his platform, he was on his platform crying for 2 straight hours about a woman that he had been dating in private on the low in the background, who did what any woman with their good sense should do and could not get comfortable. She couldn't get her nervous system comfortable in a relationship with him. Why? Because he's a narcissist. But luckily, she had the spiritual discernment to know that this man don't need to be really nobody's husband but hers.
A lot of times people DM me and ask me, have you met the one? Why are you still single? Are you really truly looking for a person, or are you just enjoying the variety of women and these dating streets and have become non-committal? Well, today's episode will answer that question.
And he spoke about this on his platform. See, that's the thing. I don't make no judgments about anybody until I can compare certain things that they say in different settings. And baby, all the laughing and mocking and really just loaded questions that he asked her throughout the interview, I don't know how she sat through it. If it was me, I would have got up and left. But I feel like she could sit through it because it's the same exact spirit that she's used to enduring. If Danae really wanted to be taken seriously, she would have done a woman's platform, especially if you're going to come in here and now grift other women. Why would you sit across from a man who has no understanding of what you went through and what you're talking about, unless you're male identified? That's the only way these women can continue to defend men who do things that defame women, who do things that debase women, and then still sit in their face. How this man telling you his testimony is that I did my wife the same exact way that your husband did you, but you come on my platform to like clear your name. But baby, once she wasn't willing to take back, Danae wasn't willing to take back all the stuff about cursing people that didn't have nothing to do with the demise of her marriage, I knew, baby, you're not healed and you're not ready to minister anything to anybody, because the humbling that it takes to be a servant starts with you. It starts with you being the first one to say, I was wrong and I'm sorry. It starts with you washing feet. So I submit that Danae really is no different than Chrisean, who is going through all these antics with Blueface really just for money. Hello?
Now, this is your place, but I am in charge of the girls. And you can just kiss my ass.